Thank you. Just a quick correction, Shoaib Choklan, African Disability Forum, not from South Africa, but from Ethiopia.
Huh?
Yes.
apologies.
African Disability Forum, the headquarters is in Addis Ababa, but I am based in Cape Town. I'm sorry for the confusion. I was a bit confused. We were supposed to start this session at 11 o'clock, but I was told that in Kenya it can start, at any time. So I accept that, being another African. But I'm gonna give you a quick anecdote that will help you with this time management problem. I'm quite old, as you can notice by my hair, but I used to work for Nelson Mandela in his office. I was very fortunate that when Nelson Mandela became president, I was one of his staff members, and I was probably the youngest person in that office. Very, very senior, smart people. But I used to travel with him, and sometimes we would have cabinet meetings. The government ministers would meet either in Cape Town or Pretoria. But when we had meetings in Cape Town, ministers were often late because they would fly in from Johannesburg early in the morning and not be in time for the meeting that starts at 8 o'clock sharp. And I wasn't a minister. I was just sitting on the sidelines with the secretariat. And there was the round table, where the ministers used to sit. And every time a minister opened the door, and that came in late, once the door opened, Nelson Mandela would jump up, and then say, "I apologize sincerely for starting this meeting without you." Just to embarrass the ministers. So everybody learned, to have a different culture when it comes to time management. But there is something called African time. So I accept that. This session that I'm moderating has to do with the Africa we want in terms of the digital future, how we see the role of OPDs, Organizations of Persons with Disabilities. So it's more focused when we say the Africa we want in terms of digital accessibility. So I have a list of speakers here. I have Eric with me. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Yeah, my name is Annette Garana, and I will use the male interpreter.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm from the organization known as Fuavita. Fuavita is an organization that supports women with disability through entrepreneurship program and leadership program.
Are you going to be using a short video or a presentation?
Yes, I will use the short presentation.
Okay. Yeah. And right next to her is Eric Ngondi. He is from Kenya, from the United Disabled Persons of Kenya. And then Mariam will introduce herself. She's from Kilimanjaro Blind Trust. She's also going to be presenting a short video. And then Nixon from the Kenya Deaf Association. But they will introduce themselves as they go along. So I'm going to hand over. Mariam, are you going to start, or shall I go from? You can use the microphone.
We can go in order.
Okay, I'm going to start with my colleague on my left here.
Yeah, as I can express myself, I'm a deaf woman wearing the red gown, and I have a ring in my earring. So I'm presenting the organization known as FUAVITA. So as the topic says, Africa we want at the DPOs. The organization of people with disability play a great role towards supporting the implementation of digital accessibility in Africa. So in many ways, the following are the roles of organization of people with disability play to ensure no one person with disability is left behind in the digital area. Starting with the through advocacy to promote inclusive digital policy and raise awareness on accessibility. So at FUAVITA, we have engaged to review and update the existing disability policy in Tanzania, partnered by UN Women Tanzania, where we ensure that the policy explain well the digital inclusion, ensuring persons with disability are provided the digital skill training and their inclusive digital access. And the second is through collaboration. At FUAVITA, we partner with government, developers, and the private sector to implement accessibility standard. Also, we have collaborated with the global stakeholder like Internet through Zoom meeting to make the work easier and the advocates for the right of children with disability. So at FUAVITA, we have collaborated by Global Peace Foundation Tanzania and the Stanbic Bank to implement accessibility standards. And the last, it's about the capacity building. We train women and girls with disability on the use of social media channel to advise their product and train them on digital skill training, basic digital training skills. So that I can end there so that to give other people a chance to speak. Thank you very much.
Eric?
Thank you very much, Mr. Shoaib. It's just the other day that someone here in Kenya told me that we have a very peculiar habit of just tapping the mic before we speak, and I think I just did that. But in light of what we are talking here, and just to introduce myself, sorry for that, my name is Eric Ngondi. I chair the umbrella body of organizations of persons with disabilities in Kenya, the United Disabled Persons of Kenya, UDPK, and I'm also a member of the board of the Africa Disability Forum, and other hats that I wear in different spaces. So in light of what we are talking about, I think the first point I could make, that Africa is not short of, vision. It's not short of a dream about what we want, the Africa we want. Indeed, in the, I think it's in the, is it in the protocol or something that talks about the Africa we want by 2063. And indeed, it touches about what we are talking about, the issues of accessibility. So in light of that, for me, I think one of the things we can talk of is leaving no one behind, just like my colleague has said, and specifically persons with disability, and specifically organizations of persons with disabilities. Of course, these are organizations led, directed, and which are like vehicles that carry persons with disabilities. So all that we do indeed have to carry persons with disabilities and their organization. So that is one. Leaving no persons with disabilities behind in the conversation around digital accessibility. The second thing I could talk about is the issue of partnership. The Africa we want. Indeed, it's what someone said yesterday. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go with others. So the issue of partnership, I think, is still critical in light of the Africa we want. At UDPK, we do indeed partner with many organizations some of them represented here, including Light for the World, Sight Savers, and many others who are in this room, that we support each other in this journey of inclusion, and specifically digital inclusion. And indeed, we do have some programs that we work together. So the issue of partnership, both at the national level, at the regional level, and even at the continental level, like Africa Disability Forum, is key, the issue of partnership. I think the other one, which is the bottom line, the best I can talk about, is the issue of accessibility. The Africa we want, we will not want an Africa that is not accessible. Whatever time T that we want to see this Africa, we do not want an Africa that is not accessible. And I think the conversation here is critical. And then I think, was it yesterday when we had the conversation, how can we elevate, for example, our Kenya standard, the KS 2952 on accessibility, how can we elevate that to be a continental accessibility law? So how can we make that an accessibility law for all of us? And I think that's something that we will want in the Africa that we want. And the final thing I think I will want to talk about is the issue of, again, having everyone on board. This one has to do with the duty bearers. So we're talking about the government, the private sector, and other non-state actors. So in Kenya, for example, the organizations of persons with disabilities, led, of course, by UDPK at the national level, works collaboratively with the government in the issue of accessibility and issues of digital inclusion. So the issue of involving everyone. In terms of private sector, we note that, for example, the Kenya Business and Disability Network, which UDPK is the vice chair, represented by yours truly. So partners were again in the issue of having this issue of digital inclusion for persons with disability, while it's a network led by employers, then how can we have such kind of networks or private sector involved in this issue of digital inclusion? So the Africa we want will have to, again, involve these key stakeholders. Thank you, Shoaib, and I think that's what I can say for now.
Thank you, Eric. You've raised some very important points there. Partnerships with governments, with the business sector is very important. And also we should look at the regional level when we develop an African digital accessibility standard, that can impact national governments as well. But let me hand over to Mariam. Mariam, you have the floor.
Great, thank you, Shoaib. And wonderful points raised by the other two panelists as well. Good afternoon, everyone. I am not Suparna, which I think you could see her picture, and as it was introduced earlier, my name is Mariam, and I am sort of representing both Global Disability Innovation Hub, where I work, and Kilimanjaro Blind Trust, because I'm going to talk about a project that was delivered in partnership with both organizations. So I'm a research fellow at the Global Disability Innovation Hub. We are not an OPD, but we have global partnerships where we work with OPDs very, very closely through our UK International Development funded 80-20-30 program, about which you might have heard throughout the conference. Yesterday we had the Mobilize AT panel where Kathy Holloway also talked about one of our projects that we have delivered as part of that program. So we work very closely with private sector, with OPDs, with the civil society, and through our government funding as well. So in the project, which we will show a brief video about as well, we conducted a needs assessment survey and consultations with approximately 200 OPDs in Kenya from Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu regions. And the OPDs highlighted several issues. Some of them also very much resonate with what has already been said. So the OPDs highlighted a lack of networking opportunities and a collective voice for OPDs for accountability and policy enforcement. So obviously we have the standards, we have the regulations and policies, but the implementation on the ground is often lacking. So that's one of the things that came up quite clearly from the consultations. Next, the OPDs also mentioned a lack of organizational and strategic advocacy skills. So a lot of the OPD representatives mentioned that they are motivated to advocate and represent people with disabilities because they have a lived experience, or they have someone who they know in their family or friends has a lived experience of disability. They don't necessarily always have the organizational skills and the strategic advocacy skills to advocate for disability rights at different levels. The third one was, I think it will resonate quite a bit with everyone in the room as well, is the appropriate and sustainable funding sources. And because a lot of the OPDs that we consulted with, they work through grants and small grants that are provided through the community, or through membership subscriptions, or government grants through the National Council of Persons with Disabilities. But those grants and those funding sources are not sustainable. So for any OPD to be able to continue working, continue making a difference, they need sustainable funding sources as well. And finally, and most importantly, I think, is a lack of core knowledge and technical skills to advocate for disability rights. That has already been said, is a lot of OPDs actually lack the understanding of digital accessibility. They don't fully have the knowledge of what standards already exist, what does digital accessibility even mean, and what rights do people with disability have when it comes to digital accessibility. So to address some of these challenges, we conducted capacity building workshops on disability advocacy, grant writing using AI tools like ChatGPT, for example, for storytelling and technical skills development as well. But there's a need to do a lot more, obviously, in this space. And anyone who's interested in working in this space on building some of the work, we are going to be launching our report, which I'm holding up right now, on our social media using #InclusiveAfrica. So please do follow that, and also follow Global Disability Innovation Hub, where this will be posted as well. So thank you so much, Shoaib, and over to you.
That was very interesting. I'm particularly interested in what you said about OPDs not having the capacity to advocate. I don't know, that's a bit, in which countries, because I know that you had some research that you were doing in which countries, in Tanzania, and you were doing research in India, and where else?
Yeah, so we work globally, but across Southeast Asia and Africa as well. This particular project we have implemented in Kenya and in Pakistan. And across both countries, there were similar issues, but the understanding and of advocacy, the understanding is there, obviously, because the motivation is there. But people generally lack the tools and the resources and the ability to advocate at different levels.
Okay, different levels. But if we're looking at digital accessibility, right, we have to engage with governments at the national level. We have to engage with large corporations. I'm thinking about Safaricom and Vodacom. For example, I can give you the Vodacom example in South Africa. I attended a conference of Vodacom, also on digital accessibility for people with disabilities. And they had the CEO present. They had the Minister for Communications present in South Africa. The Vodacom Foundation, where they have a woman with a disability who runs the Disability Engagement and Accessibility Program. So it was quite high level, and all of this came about because of the lobbying and advocacy of the National Council for Persons with Disabilities in South Africa. So, yeah. And in Kenya, we have UDPK and Shivawata in Tanzania. These are members of the African Disability Forum who are quite active. But I think the challenge is to engage, with governments and corporations around digital accessibility. And if there's a standard that needs to be developed, in many countries there won't be a standard. There'll be standards on different accessibility, but not digital accessibility, because it's still new.
Yeah.
And we haven't figured out how to use AI, for instance, for fundraising purposes and so forth. Yeah. Anyway, Miriam, let me give Nixon a chance to speak, and then we come back, because this is becoming very interesting now.
Absolutely.
Because I was in your session yesterday where you presented the research, your colleagues, on the use of cell phones, yep, mobility devices, which is very important for us as the African Disability Forum. I can tell you that we operate in 45 countries in Africa, and we do it primarily through the use of cell phones. But let me hand over to Nixon, sorry, our friend from the Kenya Association of the Deaf.
Sorry.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Nixon Kakiri. I'm having black shoes, a gray suit, and a pink shirt, plus a tie. I'm bald in head. I have glasses, so no nails to talk about. I smile a little bit. Yes, that's all about me. Thank you for this opportunity once again. It's a very important discussion. The role of OPDs. As we work in Kenya, we always work in collaboration with different OPDs, and we are working closely with UDPK, the National Council for Persons with Disability, and also the Association of the Intellectual. So we are working together to push policy reforms so that we can capture the aspect of technology. For instance, if you look at recently, the president signed assent to Persons with Disability bill. It was an act by then. So he assent on it a month ago. So it talks of accessibility for persons with disability and also how to access information. We are also trying to push to see how its implementation will take place. At the same time, at the national level, there's those disability policies which need to be worked on. There are so many opportunities whereby persons with disability, when it comes to access to health care, education, and sometimes back when we had Corona, the Ministry of Education trying to come up with virtual learning. I know we are not very flexible, we are not up to par with what's happening in developed countries, but somehow it worked for us. And we work with the Ministry of Health so that we are able to see opportunities whereby we can introduce sign language as a mode of communication to all health workers and also Kenya medical schools. For those who are taking courses in nursing, they need to be fluent in Kenya Sign Language so that they'll be able to communicate with deaf patients who visit those hospitals instead of involving a third party. So we are also trying to come up with a digital technology whereby we are having a board. A deaf patient will be able to explain, and at the same time there's a board to describe what is ailing him or her. So, but something which still not working, because that's bringing in a new language which is trying to bridge the gap, but coming up with the issue of video calls, the advertisements. You find even in parliament or in public barazas, you find still we are lacking accessibility format. And a written document becomes in a different language, that is either English or Swahili. But we are trying to look for a way whereby information can be relayed to the deaf through signs, having a video, which will be able to capture what has been written into sign language. So the deaf community will be able to access those information. Just like now, if you look at most of our televisions in this country, during news time, we have a sign language insert. I know people have been complaining that the insert is too small, but that's courtesy of our advocacy work, that now the deaf are able to access information. Again, today in the morning, I had a discussion in one of the televisions, Citizen TV television, and we were talking on issues of technology. How to make technology become more affordable to persons with disabilities. So those were things which are still ongoing. We are still in the process, and we are still doing our advocacy work. I know sometimes when it comes to implementation, it becomes a big technical, we face challenges. But we are working on it, because sometimes people say that they don't have a ramp to make the building accessible to persons with disability or wheelchair users. And also the issue of Braille. Maybe you can find there's only one Braille to serve the entire organization, but which is not quite adequate. We need more of this kind of material for persons with disability to access information. The issue of having sign language interpreters, and the standardization, the qualification, is just something which is wanting. So those are the kind of challenges we are still facing, and we are working on it. You might not be aware, but this year we are hosting the World Federation of the Deaf here in Nairobi in the month of August. It's one of the themes is AI, use of AI in sign language, which is linked with technology. So the conference itself, will help us how to to include sign language when it comes to digital accessibility, and that's something we are still on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dixon. So I think we've got 12 minutes left, right? And Miriam, did you want to show a video or something?
Yeah, but I think, I'm sorry, I forgot the name. You also had a video. The lady next to you also had a video.
No.
No, okay. Yeah, I have a video to play. So basically the video shows the stories of the OPD representatives who participated in the project and the impact the project has been able to make for them. So if you want to, the AV guys want to play the video. Thank you.
I'm Carol Joseph Semoyo, founder Smile for Neurodiversity Organization. This is an organization for parents with children living with neurological disorders.
I'm the chairperson of Jasiri Women Self-Help Group. Jasiri Women is a group formed by women with disabilities with one commitment and passion for advocacy. Our thematic areas are education, entrepreneurship, blue economy, and climate adaptation and resilience initiative.
What motivated me to begin doing advocacy for people living with disability, it all started with myself. Because during my time when I caught up with disability, the stigma was very high and also awareness was very low.
As a leader and other leaders, we are looking forward to embrace AI in our organizations, like in our daily activities. We can use AI in financial management, record keeping, telling our stories about our organization.
Currently, we have policies, but these policies do not help us, because once these policies are violated, there's nothing you can do to enforce or take somebody to court.
policies that we currently have require a lot of review. Most of them are very archaic, quite outdated, and quite prohibitive, to the extent that sometimes you may just think that policies are made to prohibit people from getting services.
If we can have a legal framework in the counties, all the 47 counties, that is enforceable, then we are sure also to be living in a life whereby we can enjoy the fruits of liberation alongside all the other citizens.
What I can just say to the decision makers and the partners that are now maybe listening to me is, number one, me, what I know can work for us is only acts. When we have a disability act, that will also be mandated even to the treasury, that they need to allocate resources for us. It will be so nice.
The first thing that we need to change is our perception towards people living with disabilities. Most of us take them like sometimes beggars or people who can't be productive. If we are going to change that perspective towards them, we're going to have a world that is inclusive to everyone and that can accommodate everyone.
Me, as Faisal Lokech Abdallah, I want to thank Kilimanjaro Blind Trust and GDI Hub for bringing this initiative, for bringing OPDs under one umbrella so that they can understand our challenges and how we can overcome them.
As Emily, and on behalf of our organization, Amazing Group of Persons with Disability, my message to the Kilimanjaro Blind Trust and to GDI is that this is the opportunity that we've been looking for. For long, we've never found an organization that has brought us together on board the way you guys have done. Our minds have been broadened, and even with the support we are giving to some of our institutions or organizations already, has really capacitated our disability.
Is there any way you can turn the screen off? Very difficult with this thing flashing in my eye. Are they, okay, we've got a few minutes left. Thank you, Miriam, for that very interesting and informative video. Very short but informative, grassroots OPDs and the kind of challenges they face, but also the opportunities to use AI and other digital technologies. And, you know, I wish we had a bit more time to talk about your research you did on mobility devices, because, you know, cell phones and accessibility of cell phones and the use of cell phones is probably the most important device that we use amongst ourselves as people with disabilities and our organizations, not just to communicate, but to work, to transfer funds, to run our businesses or micro enterprises, and all sorts of other activities, training and education. That the mobile devices just become a critical tool. But are there any questions? There's one hand up at the back. Another hand. Oh, there's two hands over here, but I'll take that hand first.
Good afternoon. My name is Perpetua Senkoro from Tanzania. I've been privileged to work with OPDs, especially in the area of capacity building and digital security. So when we do training with OPDs, one thing that we mostly see is, number one, language, the language barrier. Kenya is good at English because it is a common language. Tanzania, Kiswahili is the common language. And when you talk about digital accessibility, the main language that is looked upon is English. So you sit with OPDs in the room and conduct the training, but at the end of the day, you spend a lot of time translating, getting them to understand what you are teaching. And it is a big impediment for them to understand. That is number one. But number two, as one of the speakers said, OPDs are underfunded. So they have different priorities, which are immediate priorities. A person who is thinking of where am I going to get rent for my office won't be thinking about buying a laptop. So even the research that is going on across OPDs and their capacity and them being underfunded, we should also look at the immediate issues that they're facing financially, but also as we look at digital accessibility, we should also look at the language barrier, how we can be able to have them access the digital space in a way that they understand, especially for grassroots OPDs.
Over here, yeah. There's two hands, yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Sharon Awino from Kenya. Okay, for me, this thing has been disturbing me, being an activist and an advocate for children under neurodiversity. So here's my question, and this one is for all the OPDs that are inside here, because it's something that is hindering us, especially. It's something that is hindering us, especially in education department and employment for person with disability. We find out like we are using the age limits, like in Kenya, we are at 50 something is when we get retired, yes. But if we check on our children with disability, we find out like our children finish school at around 15 to 16. That one is a primary school. And then at high school, before they finish at college or university, they'll be at the age of 35 or 25, yeah? 35 or 40 or 37. So here's my question. Can we do an implementation on age for person with disability? OPDs, can we do that? I hope we can do such implementation on that. And again, I think for sign language, this one have been something that have been hindering not only in Kenya, but all over the world. Institutions that are working with government and institutions that are non-governmental, I think that they should come up with a policy like anyone who is working under those NGOs or government or civil or government facility. They should go and do a sign language, because personally I think sign language should be mandatory to every one of us in the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Eric, do you want to respond to the question? We just have a few minutes left and one more hand. We'll come to you right now, but Eric, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I think I can say something, and thank you, Perpetua, on the question of language barrier, and I think this cuts across Africa. While Kenyan, we may look like we speak English, most of our OPDs also experience that challenge. But indeed, we cannot leave anyone behind because of that issue of language. So how then, as OPDs, as partners, as colleagues, how do we support the persons with disabilities to actually understand what the capacity that you're building for them, especially around digital accessibility? This is where the issue of technology can come in. This is where the issue of innovation can come in. But indeed, we cannot leave anyone behind, even though we are experiencing that issue of a language barrier. I may not have a particular solution for you, but I think we can do something around that. The issue of what, Sharon, you're talking about, I think I totally agree with you. Many persons with disabilities experience the issue of ageism, such that, in fact, I have colleagues or friends who say, well, now the focus is on youth with disabilities. Our constitution defines the youth as those as below 35, but many persons with disabilities have passed that age of 35, so they cannot seemingly get those opportunities that are present at the moment in terms of employability, in terms of scholarships, in terms of education. So I think that's something that we can also keep on looking around when we are thinking about inclusion. Then how are we including even those ones who are past that age of what we define as a person who is a youth. Thank you, Shoaib.
Thank you, Eric. We have about 15 seconds left according to this clock.
I would like to add on something on what Eric has just said. Technologically, technology helps to change language, especially when it comes to AI. So we need to do more research on that so that we can be able to come with a result on how to edit a language or change a language from one language to the other language. Most of the countries speak English, and Swahili, I'm not so sure, I can't say, because if you look at Google, there's that translation whereby it's able to translate from Swahili to English or from English to Swahili. May not be perfect, but I think for now we can use that. Is that the only solution we have as we speak? The same thing applies to sign language. Yes, in the area of language, we need to involve the use of machine. Then maybe in the near future, maybe in 20 years to come, we should have some kind of, we should do something that makes the language to be translated efficiently. If you look at sign language, I think look at our constitution, it has recognized sign language as a language, and it's the third language in parliament. We have the Disability Act, also emphasizing on the use of sign language as a language which needs to be introduced in most of our learning institutions. So if the implementation is successful, I'm so sure that in the near future, we'll get so many people who are so fluent in sign language. So it's something which is still ongoing. We are still working on it.
Okay, thank you. We've run out of time, but I'm going to take the last question. Do you still?
My name is Claire Osoro. I am a co-founder at Maendeleo ya Walemavu. It's an advocacy platform for persons with disability and also the disability conversation in terms of now inclusion in spaces, in workspaces, in education institutions, etc. So mine is actually not much of a question. It was a contribution in terms of, one, the technology is there. And the interesting part is that we even have the technology partners here within the conference, like the example of Signverse. They're doing sign language to audio, but then now it's the conversation of how much does it cost? Are we willing to plug in other people in this conversation so that it's not one technology partner or it's not just an individual, but it's that we're using that platform to also create income generating activities for the PWD community at large. It's also, for me, a challenge and also a question, an indirect question to Kakiri. Firstly, thank you so much for the milestones that you've gotten us into, especially with the inclusion of sign language on TV stations. I was at a forum last weekend where the film sector was talking about, I was there having a conversation with the film producers on having sign language as the snippet also in content creation and also production of films, documentaries, and also as an income generating activities where we can bring in the PWD community to also earn as actors and also editors and other skills. So in this conversation, let's also add taking sign language to the preliminary stages where we can even condition it, which is much easier, the primary schools. So add primary schools to that conversation, Kakiri. Plug us in, let us push this agenda so that it's not single-handed. The conversation right now is supposed to be about what can we do together, collaboratively, rather than wanting to take the emblem or the flag as one institution or one entity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You are standing ready, madam? Have we run out of time? Completely. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I wish we had more time because I myself as moderator, you know, I'm limited, but I have so many questions in my own head about OPDs and the role OPDs can play really in advocating for digital accessibility standards, for the private sector and government to comply, and all of these things. But our time is done here, so let me hand back to you. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.